Welcome back. So, is the Justice and Development Party, the AK Party, a threat to Turkey's secular identity? The AK does have Islamist roots, and opposition protesters say they fear it could bring religion into Turkey's government. They point to previous AK initiatives to combat the state ban on headscarves in universities and official buildings, to curb alcohol consumption by creating special drinking zones outside major cities. And some AK members did implement an alcohol ban in municipal cafes and restaurants, but later a government ruling made those actions illegal. As for the AK government, it says its main focus has been to implement economic reforms and drive economic growth, attract foreign funding to modernise the country's infrastructure and push Turkey's bid for EU membership. Well, our guests are Dr. Hasan Koni of the Department for International Relations at Istanbul University, Mr. Egemen Bağış from the ruling AK Party, joining us from Ankara, and we'd also like to welcome Andrew Finkel, a freelance journalist in Istanbul. Andrew Finkel, welcome to the programme. Let me start with you, if I may. What's your reaction, first of all, to this political impasse, and what's this telling us about the state of democracy in Turkey?
Well, it obviously means that there are certain problems. We've had everything has gone by the book. The Constitutional Court has annulled the elections. It all seems legal and above board. But of course, there is this suspicion that the Constitutional Court listened rather closely to what the military was thinking, as well as their own textbooks, as well as their own law books. So there is some sense that the crisis has been induced, as it were, by non-directly elected forces in Turkey. So there's some concern over the state of Turkish democracy, but of course there's also an effort to bring things back on the right track, to ensure that in the next month or two, as elections go ahead, as the election campaign is fought on real issues, that Turkey will be able to assert its own free will and its own clear voice again.
Just talk us briefly, Andrew Finkel, through some of the fears and concerns by the secularists about what's happening, or what they perceive to be a rise in Islamism across Turkey. Is it paranoia or genuine fear?
Well, it's perhaps a little bit of both. The Turkish state is a very centralized state. There's a very powerful central mechanism within the Turkish state, and there's a very powerful parliament, but there's also a very powerful extra-parliamentary control in that parliament. That extra-parliamentary control consists of the courts, it consists of the army, surprisingly enough. It consists of basically institutions which are somehow responsible to the presidential office. The president has a great deal of responsibility in appointing various people, members of the Turkish establishment. Now, I think what the Turkish establishment, if that's another way of defining the secularists, is concerned of is that this very powerful instrument, which in a sense they created back in 1982 with the 1982 constitution that was bequeathed to Turkey by military, that somehow this very powerful apparatus is leaving their hands, and it's being taken over by a political movement which they don't really quite understand. They're not sure if the AKP party has a secret agenda. That's what many of them fear. You even hear very extreme people saying that, well, we know how the Nazis came to power. They came to power through free elections, and then they subverted democracy. But of course the AKP is saying, no, really what's at stake here is not the secular, the constitutional nature of the Turkish society. What's at stake here is Turkish democracy.
Okay, all right. Well,
and so there's two completely different worldviews.
Okay, well, let's put that view to Dr. Hasan Koni in Istanbul. Dr. Koni, is there a secret agenda by the AK party? I mean, what do you think the real fears are?
Oh, they don't have any secret agenda. Their movements are the reflections of their own culture. They are the people of Turkey, I mean, the low people of Turkey. If you are not within the elite or within the bureaucracy, you are like them. So they are reflecting their own culture, and this culture is seen as a sort of Islamism for the secular and the developed people of Turkey. Otherwise, they are trying to join to Europe, and they are preaching for democracy. But on the other hand, the legacy of their culture is haunting them, and plus the environment of Turkey is haunting the Turkish people too. On one side we have Iran. On the other hand, we have the fighting countries, and the radical Islamic movement is on the rise. So every fear is reflected within the Turkish political system. And this is their own culture, and this is not very suitable for the Turkish elite. That's why, as I said before, this dichotomy is going on more than 200 years.
Let's put that point to Egemen Bayush in Ankara, because some observers point out, I mean, Hasan Koni just said it there, that the old elite who champions secularism are afraid of democracy and are afraid of the will of the people. I mean, where do you stand on that?
I agree with Professor Koni. They fear democracy and they fear the people of Turkey, but the fear is not going to get them anywhere. This is a democratic country. I mean, they might have some concerns, and I respect that. But let's look at the deeds of AK Party in government for the last 4.5 years. We haven't done anything to scare people, and we have resolved the problems that none of those elites or secularists, as they call themselves, could be able to solve in the past 80 years. We were the first government to provide all the benefits to the Turkish people, like free textbooks, like coal help, like inflation, like interest rates, like European Union membership. I mean, we have come a long way. This was a country where books of Kafka and Dostoevsky were collected because they were found to be provocative. This was the country where the prime minister was executed, hanged in 1960. This is the country where the mayor of Istanbul was imprisoned for having recited a poem that's in our textbooks. But now Turkey is a much more democratic country where you can see different ethnic languages performed on stage in theater, where you can see different presentations in different languages, publications, and Istanbul has been chosen by European Commission as the culture capital of Europe for year 2010.
Okay,
so Turkey has come a long way.
Let's just try and get another point in from Andrew Finkel, and let's just stay with the issue of the social elite. I mean, how serious should we take these warnings from the army, for example, and how far do you think they will be prepared to go to protect the status quo?
Well, the army has made their opinions known. There was a memorandum which the chiefs of staff issued in the middle of the night to say that the new president should really, should have be a core believer, a true defender of the secular republic. And clearly their voice is not to be dismissed. I think there's a great sense of relief now that elections are going ahead and that the army, as it were, is backing off. I don't think anyone in Turkey really wants to see a period of military rule. There seems to be no real reason for it. The country, for all its problems, is moving along slowly and is moving along gradually and with progress. But I think there's another source behind the anxiety, the fears, and the sense of unease in Turkey. And I think possibly it's less to do with internal dynamics, but to do with external dynamics. There's the war in Iraq. For the first time, there's a very serious conflict on Turkey's border.
Okay,
this is a great cause of concern.
All right, I just want to get a final thought, if I may, from Dr. Hasan Koni in Istanbul. Hasan Koni, what kind of Turkey do you think will emerge from this crisis? Very briefly.
I mean, both AK Party and the opposition are learning from this process, from this new developments, and the European Union approach will still continue because there is no other way, because AKP couldn't be a party of the headscarf people. So sometimes most of the radical within the party have more voice than the others. That's their own problem. That's the main problem they have. Otherwise, they would like to modernize and they would like to be a democracy. And Turkey will continue on the way of democracy. There is no way back, and will be on the way of modernization.
Okay, Dr. Hasan Koni in Istanbul, Egemen Bayush in Ankara, and Andrew Finkel in Istanbul. Thank you all very much for joining us. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. That's insidestory@aljazeera.net. From the whole team here, goodbye for now.